Hey everyone, I'm here today to talk to you about the 3 questions every therapist should ask themselves when working with difficult or challenging clients. So let's get started. The first question to ask yourself is, does every session feel like Groundhog Day? Meaning, does your client keep talking about the same thing over and over, but seeing little change or progress? The second question is, do my clients forget to use their coping strategies, even though you've talked about it in every session? Question number 3 is, do I keep trying different interventions or techniques, but still see very little progress or change in my client? I'll get to all of that in a minute. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Natalie Brooks, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and I specialize in the treatment of persons suffering from personality disorders, eating disorders, complex trauma, and basically anything that clinicians find hard to treat. But back to those challenging clients. So maybe as a therapist, I know we're all well intended, and so we might keep reminding them to use their DBT or CBT or whatever T coping skills. And then maybe we process why they didn't use them. And then we might come up with a plan to help, and I'll just call her, to help struggling Sally remember to use those skills in between sessions. And maybe the two of you agree, and maybe you've even had her put it on her phone right there in the session or in her journal or write it down somewhere, right? So those are all really great therapeutic interventions. But then struggling Sally comes back next week with the exact same issue and tells you she really had a lot of emotional dysregulation. And then you inquire about her coping skills and she stares blankly back at you, right? And so then, if you're like me, you probably think that you somehow must have been unclear, or maybe you might even start to think that Sally is being resistant to treatment. And if you're like me and you're thinking, okay, maybe I wasn't clear enough and I need to, make it even more simplified or more clear or review it again, right? But the problem is that because most therapists, all of us, are really well intended and conscientious, we start to try different interventions. Maybe you try offering another reframe or a motivational interview question, or you use the cognitive triangle approach, or a DBT chain analysis, distress tolerance, or offer a miracle question, and on and on. But we're creating a problem by doing this. And it's something I've seen every therapist do, no matter how experienced they are. And yet it's the number one thing we therapists need to avoid at all costs. I did it too until I got really curious about it through my own consultation and study. And what happens is that all of these well thought and evidence-based interventions create the rubber band effect. So what is the rubber band effect? Well, by implementing different interventions or the same one over and over again, it creates more resistance for the client on an internal level because they want to be able to use the coping strategies you're teaching them. They want to feel better. But like a rubber band, it that keeps stretching, you and your client also feel stretched and pressured, and that all that does is create more and more resistance. And we all know what happens eventually to a rubber band that's stretched too far, right? The band's going to snap. And in this case, snapping means one of two things. Sally will snap and either terminate treatment prematurely or ghost you or worse, or whatever. Or worse, she will engage in really self-destructive behavior, leaving you both back at square one. So in order to get Sally to use those coping skills in between sessions, we need to stop trying to motivate her with therapeutic interventions. Now, I'm not talking about the ethical and legal interventions that we've all pledged to and are legally obligated to. Let me be clear, I'm not talking about those ethical and legal interventions. But what I'm talking about is stopping the resistance by not motivating, interpreting, challenging, or empathizing, because by doing this, you're stretching yourself and your client, in this case, Sally, like a rubber band, and that is going to snap. Now, I know you're thinking, well, I'm a therapist, and isn't that what we're supposed to do? The answer is, in this case, no, not yet. Sally isn't ready. So then you're probably thinking, well, okay, then what do I do? The answer is very simple, but it's also the most difficult for therapists in particular. And the answer is to stop assuming. And we therapists do this all the time. We assume we know and get it because Sally agrees with us and wants to feel better. But what's actually happening is that it creates mistrust. And I know you're probably thinking, what? Mistrust? So all I'm supposed to do is build more trust? But Sally already trusts me, right? We've built a rapport and she knows I care about her because I've told her that in a professional way. We've even brought it into the therapy sessions and processed it and reviewed our treatment goals, and we're all on the same page. But let me say it again, not assuming is the simplest, but the hardest thing for therapists to do. But what I can assure you is that if you take the time to learn how not to do this, two things will happen. Your challenging clients will make progress, and you will become a better therapist and be able to successfully help more and more people. So if you want to know the specific strategies, download my 3 steps to working with difficult therapy clients by clicking the link in the description below. And if you have a comment, I'd love to hear it. If you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe below and also give it a like. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.